Hello everyone and welcome back to day 14 of Preptober. Today I'm sort of continuing yesterday's conversation about characters by talking about names. Now I'm primarily talking about names for locations and for characters. I will have a video up on titles a little later on in the month, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. But today I'm focusing on the names of people and places. Now if we look back on characters like I talked about yesterday, sometimes they just come to you. Sometimes you just think up this person and they are perfect to put into your story, but you can't figure out a name for them. Or on the other hand, you might have a name. You really want a character named Steve, just to continue with the same example. And Steve is just a name at this point. Steve has no personality, Steve has no body, Steve is just Steve, and you need to build a person who fits the name, sort of. And this is true regardless if you're writing speculative fiction or contemporary, and it can be really time-consuming to try to come up with names. And for this, I have an idea. Basically, sit down and compile a list of names that you like the sound of, or names you just like. This can be, again, regardless if you're writing contemporary or fantasy or sci-fi or whatever else, sit down and compile a list of names. This can be names that already exist, or it can be names that you come up with on the spot. And this is a little bit dependent on your genre, because some people don't want real world, our world names put into fantasy, and some people think that really strange fantasy-y names put into our world is equally strange. But compile a list of these names, and I'm going to have a link down below to a site where I get a lot of my name inspirations, at least for when I write contemporary fiction and want, names from our world, and where you can also look up different meanings of names as well as where in the world they come from, because that can be something that you might want to do and look into. The reason you should make this list sort of now, sort of soon, and you can also add to it as the time goes on, but the reason you should make that list soon is because you will most likely be in a situation during November where you suddenly introduce a new character that you weren't intending to, or someone introduces themselves to the main character and you go, what do I name them? I didn't actually plan for the bartender to have a name, and now he's shaking hands with the main character and now he needs a name. Then you name him Steve. Steve is a universally good name. But you're going to run into these instances most likely, regardless of what you write, and regardless of if you're a plotter or a pantser. That depends. I mean, if you are a really, really rigorous plotter and you've made family trees for everyone, and you know how everyone is connected, and every single character who's ever going to appear on page, you have 200 years of backstory for them and their family, okay, maybe you've got this all worked out. But I would really recommend making that sort of list. I would also recommend you to try to not have a bunch of names that sound or look similar. With this, I mainly mean names that begin with the same letter and or are about the same length. Because having a Marie and a Maria can be really confusing, and it will take the reader out of the story to sort of refamiliarize themselves with what they're reading. It might instead be better to have a Marie and a Sarah, or a Clara, or a Steve, so as to not confuse your reader. I myself have read books where names have been too similar and I've just gone, wait, who, what? But I thought they were, but they're, and then I realized I've mixed up the names. When it comes to naming places, I am really no expert because I don't really write speculative fiction, but a key thing I hear about doing that is to have names that sort of match. You don't want to have some place called in the same country as a city that's called Bridge, because why would they have two such different names? And that sort of also goes hand in hand with naming your characters in speculative fiction. Some people really don't like it when you have a Steve and an Arwen, or Legolas, or other name that doesn't really go with Steve, especially if it's a name like Steve taken from our world and then a made-up name, and these two people are, neighbors, they grew up next to each other with similar backgrounds and they have completely different names. Of course, if they are from different backgrounds and come from different countries originally, and that happens. But some people really hate that. I don't really mind, as long as it's a name I think I can pronounce and I can at least have, a brain pronunciation of it, I'm fine. I don't really care. And you get to name your characters and your locations whatever you want to name them. It's your story. Anyway, that is all I have for you today. I'll be back with another video tomorrow, so I'll see you then. Bye!